I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes, Johnny.
Um, I sometimes encounter people or spiritualities who seem to work with more than 7 rays. Sometimes it's 8 rays, and sometimes it's 12 rays. But listening to you, it seems like there's actually not room for more than 7 rays. So I would like to hear if you agree, or and maybe you have also self-encountered some of these spiritualities with more than 7 rays, and maybe you can comment on what are they seeing? Why are they misinterpreting, or what? How do they come up with 8 rays or 12 rays?
Gotcha. I understand. Good. Thank you. That's a very interesting topic. And of course, as someone who, an aspect of my own spiritual path has been deeply involved in understanding, deepening my own understanding of this, then of course I've encountered those ideas myself. So that's a big topic. The shorter answer, because we've got about maybe 10 minutes left today, would be partially, I think in a sense, each number is its own point of view. So you can take a number like 3 as your glasses, put that on, and then you see everything in 3s. Now there's 2 possibilities there, though. What that can do is help bring out the 3-ness that is a dimension of reality. There are trinities all over the place. On the other hand, so each point of view that we look through can be a valid point of view and bring out that sort of perspective of reality. Shiva and Shakti is a basic polarity, for instance. If we go deeply intuitively into that, we can see the whole universe as a play of Shiva and Shakti. And that becomes a very profound intuitive perspective. So in some cases, these are simply alternate systems, say 9 or 12, which are also true and aren't replacements for the 7 rays. They're just, for instance, in astrology, there's 12 signs. And at some point in the webinar, we'll talk about what is the relationship, at least from the point of view of a kind of more esoteric astrology, perhaps like the astrology taught by Sri Guru Babaji and that lineage that relates very much to Vedic astrology. They relate the 12 constellations, the 7 planets, including the sun and the moon, and the 7 chakras. So there's a way that you can see how those harmonize. But some people kind of tune into just the 12 part of that, and instead of seeing that as being able to be understood in the context of 7, they just think it's a new version, and the 7's old and outdated, and the 12 is the true system. So I think that's one of the things that can lead to that is it's kind of mistaking, combining different points of view. I've had people, I did a workshop maybe 35 years ago on esotericism, and including the 7 rays in New England. And one woman told me that, she believed that there were 9 rays now, that there were 2 new ones, that's part of the sort of revelation of our time as new rays. But then when she told me about what the qualities of the new rays were, they were really qualities that were part of the original 7. She just didn't understand that. So to me, there wasn't anything compelling about what she was saying, because she was just adding, kind of creating new categories, but then putting old qualities into them. So that didn't really resonate with me. Didn't seem illuminating or clarifying in any way. Part of what motivates that, I hate to say this, but I think that one of the biases that we have around today that we have to be careful about is what I would call the New Age bias, which isn't to say that I say that the whole New Age world and mentality is biased per se, but rather that once a person might kind of come on fire with the idea of some type of newness, however they might interpret that, it can lead to a mentality of kind of looking for, oh, everything has to be changed because it's new, it's a new age, it's a new, new dharma, new something. And so it leads sometimes to people just kind of feeling the need to enhance or change everything about traditional teachings and say, oh, well, now we have a new number of planes, we have a new number of chakras, we have a new number of rays. And I haven't found that to be very, very compelling. I think it's actually driven more by a bias of like, what's new? They're trying to figure out like what's different. And sometimes that's applied in areas that aren't necessarily particularly different, or they can be seen as different in some ways, but maybe not necessarily in that way. So I think, it's fine that these ideas are around. Somebody once asked, I think it was Linus Pauling, the scientist, who won a Nobel Prize, I think, for his work on polio. And somebody asked him once, how do you come up with so many good ideas? He's innovative a lot throughout his life. And he said, well, I come up with thousands of ideas and I throw out all the bad ones. So it's fine to, that we're generating all these ideas, but we also have to do the work of sorting through them and figuring out what the real deeply intuitive, profound insights are, and which are just sort of fascinating possible ideas that ultimately need to be thrown out because, no, that's not quite it. And that's part, I like to draw a parallel between spiritual science and material science. A part of science is not just generating theories that turn out to be valuable, it's throwing out hypotheses that don't turn out to be useful. So it's fine, that's part of the process. So I'm willing to hear out different points of view. But in the end, I'm still going to go back to my intuition and see what makes sense to me. And that's kind of the method that I use. So far, I haven't encountered a new version of the rays that is compelling to me. My own intuition, though, is that, as is indicated by other authors, that in the same way each plane has subplanes, each ray has subrays. So you could say from another point of view, there's 49 rays. Also, I feel that if you combine the basic archetype of the basic polar nature of reality, like Shiva and Shakti, or yin and yang, and then you kind of combine that with the rays, then that gives you 14 different subrays. Same way you could have 49 subrays. You could also say there's 2 major subdivisions to each ray, an active side and a receptive side. Each ray has that, and that gives 14 rays. But they're actually, the basic archetype is 7, and then you start looking at the subdivisions.